I was always wondering how long it would take for them to catch on. How long until the empire I built with my own 2 hands crumbled, and they who kicked me out finally realized what they truly lost. My story isn't about money, it's about the cost of betrayal. My name's Scarlett O'Connell and I'm 36. I felt like a ghost in my own house. Sitting at the ridiculously fancy dinner table, I watched the forced smiles and shifty eyes of my relatives. They were celebrating the success of the company I'd created, but they treated me like an unwelcome guest. My niece's birthday cake with its pink frosting seemed like a symbol of the sweet facade hiding the rotten core underneath. Before we dive deeper, quickly tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and go ahead and subscribe, it helps the channel a ton. Thanks. My day used to kick off way before sunrise, my mind buzzing with ideas for Eclat debut. It was my empire, my baby. I'd started the company from scratch 15 years ago, transforming a tiny handmade cosmetics shop into a network of aesthetic clinics and a luxury product brand worth millions. But to the Harringtons, my late husband Thomas's family, Eclat was theirs. My last name, O'Connell, was nowhere to be found, except in internal documents that hardly anyone ever saw. The brand name was and always would be associated with the Harrington prestige. Victoria, my sister-in-law, was the face of Eclat. She'd smile for the cameras, give speeches at events, and rake in compliments for work that, at its core, was all mine. Richard, my father-in-law and the family patriarch, controlled the finances with an iron fist, or at least that's what he wanted me to think. I was used to this dynamic. After Thomas died 5 years ago, I clung to the company like a child, a living legacy of the love we shared. Keeping the family peace was my priority. I'd swallow the condescending remarks, the disapproving looks when I suggested something too modern, the fact that my office was smaller than Victoria's, even though I was the de facto CEO. It's for the good of the family, I'd tell myself. But peace was turning into a prison. I could see the stagnation. The beauty market was changing fast, and Eclat, under Richard and Victoria's conservative management, was falling behind. My proposals to invest in cutting-edge tech, more sustainable research, and a stronger digital presence were always met with a Scarlett, dear, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We're doing just fine. That phrase was a mantra, a constant reminder that my vision was seen as a threat to their comfort zone. They seemed more interested in maintaining the status quo than in securing the company's future. One day, while scrolling through social media, an ad made me stop dead in my tracks. A small new cosmetics brand was promoting a rejuvenating serum based on plant stem cells, with an encapsulation technology that I had developed and kept under lock and key in Eclat's labs. It was an innovative project, our next big launch. A chill ran down my spine, a cold that had nothing to do with the office air conditioning. The copy was so blatant it bordered on plagiarism, and the worst part, how did they get their hands on something so confidential? My fingers trembled as I clicked the link, seeing the product image. It was my creation being shown off by someone else, even before I'd had a chance to introduce it to the world under Eclat's name. The image of my serum, flaunted by some obscure competitor, burned in my eyes. How was this even possible? Our security was top-notch, our labs impenetrable. Or so I thought. The first person I trusted to investigate was Maya, my assistant. She'd been with me since the early days of Eclat, a quiet, observant ally with a loyalty the Harrington family could never buy. Maya, I said, my voice low and controlled as I called her into my office, I need you to do something discreet for me. Something no one else can know about. I explained the situation, showing her the online image. The shock on her face confirmed what I already felt. This was a serious leak. I asked her to check the access logs for the project files, sweep the internal communication networks, and most importantly, keep an eye out for any unusual behavior from Victoria and Richard. If anything seemed off, even a whisper, she was to tell me. In the following days, I watched every move at Eclat under a magnifying glass. Victoria and Richard became a fortress. Closed-door meetings that never used to happen, papers being locked away, and an air of secrecy that seemed to hang over their offices. They were more protective of company data than ever, but not in a way that suggested protection against external threats. It was a guard against me. I realized that certain important decisions were being made without my knowledge. I, the founder, the brains behind everything, was slowly being edged out of the very game I created. That feeling of indebtedness, which had haunted me since Thomas's death, began to morph into bitter resentment. I remembered the early years, when Victoria would ask for advice every step of the way and Richard would praise my innate ability to create magic. They seemed so grateful, so dependent. I had sacrificed so much. I gave up an active social life, put off dreams of travel, of having a bigger family. All for a claw for Thomas, for what I believed was our legacy. His death left me with a void I filled with work, with the promise of keeping what we built together. But now I realized my dedication was seen as a weakness to be exploited, not a strength to be respected. Victoria, with her diva pose and flawless smile, avoided me in the hallways. Richard, with his shrewd gaze, treated me with a chilling politeness that was almost more offensive than anger. The company I loved was becoming a battleground and I was all alone in the center. The only thing that gave me any comfort was knowing Maya was working in secret, her eyes and ears everywhere. I trusted her more than my own family. At the end of that week, my phone buzzed with a message from Maya. Need to talk to you, urgent. Not on the phone. When I met her at a discreet coffee shop, her face was pale. I overheard something, Scarlett. Victoria was on the phone talking quietly about external suppliers and something she called side businesses. I didn't catch much, but it sounded important. It's super confidential. My stomach churned. Side deals? With whom and why? Maya's chat with Victoria just wouldn't leave my head. Side deals kept hammering away in my brain. The next morning I decided to confront Victoria. Not directly, of course. I knew a straight-up accusation would just make me look like the family drama queen. I went for subtlety, a strategy Richard always complimented me on. Little did he know I was using it against his own games. Victoria, I began, walking into her office, which ironically was bigger and fancier than mine. I'm a bit concerned about some of our recent suppliers. The cost is going up and the quality, well, it's just not up to our usual standard. Is there anything you want to tell me about it? I watched her, catching every micro-expression on her face. She blinked once, twice before a forced smile appeared. Scarlett, sweetie, you're working too much. The claw is doing wonderfully. And all this paranoia of yours about every single penny, every contract. Frankly, it's exhausting. You're a control freak. The accusation hit me like a slap. Control? I just wanted to protect what was mine. What was ours, Thomas's and mine. But before I could even retort, Victoria's office door opened and Richard walked in as if he had a sixth sense for drama. He looked from me to Victoria, his face a mask of paternal concern. Girls, everything all right in here? I heard raised voices. Victoria didn't waste a second. Scarlett's just worked up over some silly supplier nonsense. I think she needs a vacation, Dad. She's a bit stressed. Richard nodded, his gaze meeting mine with a veiled disapproval. Scarlett, my dear. Eclaw is a family business. Your trust is key. We don't need unnecessary suspicions. Your dedication is valuable, but sometimes we need to trust others, don't we? His tone was soft, but the words were a stab. It was a clear warning. Don't investigate. Trust us. I felt the frustration and emotional imbalance intensify. How could I fight this? It was like swimming against an invisible but powerful current. I remembered my talks with Thomas. He always had a keen nose for his family's greed. They see the world in dollar signs, Scarlett, he used to say with a sigh. They'll never understand that true value isn't in what you accumulate, but in what you build with integrity. Back then I saw it as an artist's romanticized view, not a warning. Now his words echoed like a dark omen. He knew. He always knew. In the following days the subtle exclusion became more obvious. Important meetings about expansion into the Asian market, about the new marketing campaign. I wasn't invited. My emails were answered late or ignored. I was slowly but systematically being isolated. I had to find something, some proof, or I'd be swallowed whole by that facade of loyalty and affection. That night, after everyone had left, I went back to Richard's office. I had a hunch. I opened the door with my security key, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I knew he kept the most sensitive contracts in a specific folder. I started searching, and that's when my fingers brushed against a stack of loose documents in a side drawer. They were financial reports, but incomplete, with Richard's handwritten notes that made no sense. There were weird numbers, unregistered transfers, and a growing debt that, by my calculations, didn't match Eclaw's apparent profit. Not even close. This wasn't just bad management. It was something much, much worse. Those notes in Richard's office were a cold punch to the gut. They weren't just signs of bad management. They were evidence of something much darker, a web of financial irregularities I could barely wrap my head around. The next morning, heart pounding, I knew I had to confront him. There was no more room for subtlety. I was about to disrupt the peace they cherished so much. I walked into his office without knocking, the crumpled documents in my hands. Richard looked up from his computer, his initially neutral expression morphing into a slight disdain when he saw me there, so early and unceremoniously. "Scarlett, what a surprise. Any problem that can't wait." His tone was polite, but with that edge of superiority that really grated on my nerves. "Yes, Richard, a big problem," I said, throwing the papers onto his desk. "What are these numbers? And why is our debt growing if Eclat is doing so well, as you and Victoria keep insisting?" My eyes were fixed on his, searching for any trace of guilt. He picked up the documents, flipped through them with an air of studied disinterest, and let out a short laugh, almost a snort. "Oh, those? Just some preliminary notes. Nothing to worry about, Scarlett. They're future projections, perhaps." Future projections? The lie was so obvious it was insulting. My rage bubbled up. "Don't treat me like a child, Richard. I know exactly what these documents are. They're undeclared transactions, shady debts. You're draining Eclat dry." My voice, though trembling, carried a force he didn't expect. Richard's polite mask crumbled. His eyes, previously calm, hardened into a controlled, almost cold fury. "How dare you?" he snarled, slamming his hand on the desk. "You, an outsider who was lucky enough to marry my son, come here to accuse me of disloyalty? Of destabilizing my family, my company? You're crazy, Scarlett. You've always been a control freak, but this is paranoia. It's envy of our name, our success." He stood up, stepping closer to me, his imposing figure filling the small space between us. "You're not a Harrington, Scarlett. You're an O'Connell, and you're trying to destroy everything my son built for us." The tension at the company and at home became unbearable after that day. My colleagues avoided me. Victoria barely looked at me. I realized it wasn't just a matter of mismanagement or unchecked greed. It was something much deeper and more manipulative. They wanted me out. They wanted everything for themselves. I was isolated, treated like a threat. With every step, I felt the weight of an invisible wall rising around me. The family peace was a sham, a cruel fairy tale I had bought into for years. The truth hurt more than I expected, but with the pain came a chilling clarity. My determination to expose the truth didn't waver. It only got stronger. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. A few days later, a large, heavy envelope arrived at my office. The Harrington law firm's logo was embossed on it. My heart raced. I opened it with trembling hands, my breath caught in my throat. "Okay, I've got this." Here's that text translated into informal, natural American English, keeping those idioms in mind. It was this totally cold, formal legal notice. Turns out I was getting sued for misconduct and managerial negligence at Eclat de Butte. And get this, it was my own family coming after me. They were hitting me straight on. This wasn't just some lawsuit, it was a declaration of war. Within a few days, news of the lawsuit against me hit the press, with headlines that totally trashed my integrity and competence. Suddenly, Scarlett O'Connell, the brilliant mind behind Eclat, was now the greedy ex-wife, trying to sabotage her late husband's legacy. That lie spread faster than any anti-aging serum. Inside Eclat, the smear campaign was orchestrated with this quiet, brutal cruelty. Victoria and Richard were working behind the scenes, spreading rumors that I was unstable since Thomas died, that my modern ideas were actually just schemes to pocket funds, and that I was a thief disguised as a visionary. Those pitiful glances turned into looks of suspicion, and before long, outright accusation. Employees who were once all about my innovations now dodged me in the hallways. My office phone stopped ringing as much. Loyal clients, many of whom I'd known personally for years, started canceling appointments at the clinics and cutting back on product orders. Every single loss felt like a deep cut. The company, which was practically an extension of my soul, was being ripped away from me, piece, by the very people I'd dedicated my life to. The humiliation was public, the pain super personal. In the middle of all that chaos, I got a call from Eloise, my old college friend. She's a brilliant lawyer, super sharp, and with an unshakable sense of justice. "Scarlett, I heard what's going on," she said, her voice firm and totally supportive. "It's a setup. Let me help you." Her offer was a genuine ray of light in the darkness. I was completely worn out fighting the Harrington machine on my own. I accepted without even thinking twice. Eloise started digging through the documents I'd gathered, her eyes narrowing with each new discovery. She confirmed my worst fears. The financial manipulations were legit and the lawsuit against me was just a smoke screen. Even with Eloise's help, the vibe at Eclat became unbearable. I was totally isolated. My meetings were ignored, my emails went unanswered. Every day was a struggle just to breathe in that poisoned air. Employees who were openly loyal to me like Maya started getting retaliated against. Little injustices at work, unpaid overtime, important projects being taken away from them. I saw the fear in their eyes and felt totally helpless, unable to protect them. Then came the summons for an emergency board meeting. The email, signed by Richard, was short and formal, demanding my presence. I knew this was game over. As I walked into the conference room, my eyes scanned the faces. The board members, many of them Richard's longtime buddies, avoided my gaze. Victoria had this victorious smirk on her face. Richard was at the head of the table, looking like the MC at an execution. He kicked off the meeting with a formal speech about the crisis of confidence and the need for restructuring for Eclat's well-being. The words were empty, but the intent was crystal clear. The vote was quick, almost like a show. Richard presented fabricated evidence and manipulated testimonies. One by one, the board members voted, most with voices choked by shame, but still following the Harrington line. I was officially removed from all my positions at Eclat de Butte. The company I had built from nothing, my legacy, my life, was snatched away from me. I had lost control of my own creation. Those words still echoed in the empty meeting room. Scarlett O'Connell removed from all positions at Eclat de Butte. I walked out of there without even grabbing my purse. I just didn't have the strength to face the curious stares of the few employees still in the hallways. The empire I'd built was crumbling and I was right in the middle of it, alone, in a dizzying mix of disbelief and pain. In the days that followed, I tried to pick up the pieces. My first instinct was to go to Eclat to get my personal stuff. My photos on the desk, the notebooks with the company's first ideas, even my favorite coffee mug. But the door to my old office was locked and my access card was invalid. A security guard told me I wasn't allowed on the premises anymore. It was like overnight I had just ceased to exist. I called Maya, who had been fired the day after I got kicked out, and her voice on the phone was heavy with sadness. "Scarlett, they blocked your access to everything. Corporate accounts, email servers, even the cloud drive where you kept your personal projects. They said it's all company property." The rage that followed the pain was a cold, cutting fire. It wasn't enough to just kick me out. They wanted to erase me. To erase every trace of my existence, every idea, every innovation. It was like they were trying to rewrite history, turning me into some insignificant footnote. Eloise, my lawyer, tried to step in, but the doors were slammed in her face too. Richard and Victoria, now in full control, used every legal and corporate trick in the book to isolate me. They claimed that the patents and innovations I developed were Eclat's property, and that any attempt on my part to use them would be considered theft and a breach of contract. It was a 1-2 punch. Not only did they take away my present, but they were trying to steal my future. My intellectual property, my creations, my countless hours of research. It was all being claimed by them. I found myself with nothing. My personal savings were decent, but not enough to sustain a prolonged legal war against a family with the Harringtons' financial muscle. Me, the woman who had created a multi-million-dollar empire, was left high and dry. My thoughts were a whirlwind. Old dreams of expanding, innovating, leaving a mark on the beauty world seemed to be falling apart. A sense of emptiness consumed me. I was on the edge of a cliff with no idea where to go. Then I remembered the old house Thomas and I had bought right after we got married. Small, cozy, full of memories of him. It was the only place where I felt truly safe and where the Harringtons had never set foot. I decided to go there just to breathe, to think. When I arrived, the smell of old wood and the dusty photo albums brought me a momentary breath of peace. While I was organizing some old boxes in the attic, my fingers brushed against a dark, heavy wooden box, hidden under some blankets. I didn't remember it. Here's the informal American English translation. It was a box of my husband's stuff, something I never had the guts to open after he passed. I took a deep breath, the dust making my eyes water. Inside there were some old photos, a fountain pen he loved, and a small leather-bound notebook. A diary. When I opened it, Thomas's handwriting filled the page. The first entries were about me, about our dreams. But on the next pages the writing changed. The words got more tense, with mentions of Dad's moves, Victoria and her greed, and protecting Scarlett and O'Connell. My heart pounded. Thomas knew something. The notes were disturbing, full of worry about his own family. Thomas's box of belongings, especially that diary, felt like an anchor dropped right in the middle of my storm. I left the old house and went straight to Eloise's. I needed a safe place where the pain could be felt and the anger brewed. At her small kitchen table, with a steaming cup of tea in my hands, I started flipping through the pages of Thomas's diary. Every word in his familiar handwriting was a piece of my heart putting itself back together and shattering all at the same time. The first entries were about our dreams, plans for O'Connell's future, about how he admired my passion and vision. I felt a lump in my throat. But then the story shifted. The notes became more concise, the sentences shorter, and the worries more obvious. Dad again with his creative negotiations, I read on one page. Victoria getting unbearable with the spending. We need to keep an eye on the books. Scarlett doesn't see what's happening behind the smiles. My eyes scanned the lines, getting more and more incredulous. Thomas had noticed. He was suspicious of Richard's financial schemes, of Victoria's unchecked greed. There were mentions of shady partnerships, diversions to offshore accounts, and a scheme to inflate costs and reduce the company's net profits for tax purposes. O'Connell was being plundered from the inside. With each revelation, a new layer of pain mixed with the rage. He was trying to protect me. Thomas had planned to warn me, maybe get us out of there before things got out of hand. The notes indicated he was quietly gathering proof. He feared what Richard and Victoria might do if they were confronted. They have no qualms when money's on the line, he wrote in one entry. They'll do whatever it takes to keep up appearances and stay in control. The cruel irony was, in his untimely death he couldn't save me in time. His concern for the company's safety, and especially mine, was palpable in every line. The diary also held dark details about the plot to force me out of the business. He had found out that Richard and Victoria planned to isolate me, discredit my ideas, and eventually kick me out, to take full control of O'Connell without my interference. It was exactly what happened. Every step they took, every word they said, was right there, anticipated in the yellowed pages of my husband's diary. That discovery was a punch to the gut, a wound opening up again, but at the same time, it lit a fire inside me. It wasn't just about getting back what was stolen from me anymore. It was about honoring Thomas's memory and exposing the truth he tried to show me. I can't believe it, I mumbled to Eloise, my eyes teary but firm. He knew. He tried to warn me. Eloise read the pages with me, her face twisting in anger and sadness. This is gold, Scarlett. Irrefutable proof. Near the end of the diary, in one of the last entries, Thomas had scribbled a Plan B in small, hurried letters. It mentioned a secret investment fund created by him a few years back, just in case something went wrong with O'Connell or the family. And even more intriguing, there was a name and phone number jotted down. Jonathan Vance, Sterling Bank. A key contact in the banking world. That diary wasn't just the truth revealed, it was a roadmap for my comeback. Thomas's diary was my roadmap, but the journey was gonna be tough. With Eloise by my side, I started digging into Thomas's Plan B, the secret investment fund, and the name Jonathan Vance from Sterling Bank. The first step was hitting up Vance, a mysterious figure Thomas trusted implicitly. It was a tense call, full of caution from both sides, but Thomas's name acted like a password, opening a door to the truth. Vance confirmed the fund existed, but the red tape to access it was thick, requiring proof of my identity and my connection to Thomas. I spent days in frustration, feeling cornered by the lack of resources. My savings, while not chump change, weren't enough to cover the growing legal bills or to keep me afloat indefinitely. The humiliation of having to ask for financial help began. Calling friends I hadn't seen in years, explaining the situation without sounding like a victim, was exhausting. Some offered immediate support, others hesitated, clearly swayed by the rumors the Harringtons were spreading about my negligence. My name, once a synonym for success, was now linked to bankruptcy and controversy. It was like every door slammed shut with a painful creak, reminding me of my new status. There was a moment of deep vulnerability. One afternoon, sitting on Eloise's couch, staring at the ceiling, I felt a crushing despair. What if I just give up, Eloise? I mumbled, my voice choked. Let them win. Disappear off the face of the earth. The idea for a second seemed tempting, an escape from the pain, the humiliation, the constant fight. I could go somewhere far away, start over anonymously. But the image of Thomas's diary, his notes about his family's greed and the plan to protect me, flashed back into my mind. And Maya's face, whom I had dragged into this mess, whom the Harringtons fired without batting an eye. Maya and Eloise's support was the rope that pulled me from the abyss. Maya, even jobless, was always ready to help, to listen, to offer her sharp insights. Eloise, with her impeccable logic and iron determination, wouldn't let me crumble. It's not about them, Scarlett, she said, holding my hand. It's about you. About what you built, about what you deserve. And about Thomas. The anger, once a burden, now transformed into burning fuel. It wasn't just about justice for me, but about honoring Thomas's memory and exposing the truth he tried to reveal to me. I decided I wouldn't quit. I couldn't. It wasn't just about justice, but about proving to myself, proving to Thomas, and proving to those who betrayed me, that I was tougher than they imagined. After what felt like ages of anxious waiting and dealing with all sorts of red tape, the call finally came. It was Jonathan Vance from Sterling Bank. His voice was all business, but there was a hint of respect there. He'd managed to check everything out. Thomas's secret investment fund was legit, and get this, it was all mine. A huge wave of relief washed over me, so strong I almost fell out of my chair. It wasn't anywhere near the empire I'd built, just a fraction of what Eclat de Butte was worth, but it was cash. Enough to get back on my feet. There was, however, one unexpected catch. Thomas had slipped in, a clause that actually made me crack a smile. It just showed how well he knew me and how far ahead he thought. This surprise condition tied to Thomas's fund brought a smile to my face that I hadn't felt in months. He'd stipulated that the money could only be used to kickstart a new venture in the beauty sector, focused on innovation and sustainability. It was like, even from wherever he was, he knew exactly what I needed to reignite my passion and push me forward. It wasn't a fortune, but it was the seed capital, the spark. Enough for me to launch Aura Beauty. My vision for Aura Beauty was crystal clear, a stark contrast to Eclat's dated approach under the Harringtons. I wanted to create a brand that didn't just deliver visible results, but did it ethically, transparently, and with a positive impact on the planet. I was thinking vegan cosmetics with nanotechnology, biodegradable packaging, and products developed with individual skin needs in mind. Eclat de Butte, with its old-school mentality, would never have risked investing in something so niche or bold, as they called it. For them, playing it safe on the path I'd already paved was the way to go. For me, it was a shot at building something truly mine, free from any shadows of the past. The first thing I did was call Maya. She was stuck in a temp job, feeling pretty down, but her voice lit up when she heard my proposal. Scarlett, I'm in. Whatever you need. She was more than an assistant. She was my partner, my confidant, the only person who'd witnessed Eclat's collapse firsthand and still believed in me. With her help, I started tracking down other loyal ex-Eclat employees, the ones the Harringtons had fired or sidelined. I found a brilliant formulating chemist who'd been let go for suggesting a more sustainable line, and a digital marketing guru Victoria had deemed too young and eccentric. They were disillusioned, but their passions aligned with mine. The challenge was massive. Starting from scratch with limited resources and the shadow of my reputation, tarnished by the Harringtons, was terrifying. The beauty market competition was brutal. The long, sleepless nights were back, but this time the exhaustion came with an invigorating shot of adrenaline. Every product sample we created, every marketing strategy we sketched out, was a brick in my new fortress. I operated on the down low, no fanfare, avoiding any publicity that might tip off the Harringtons about my comeback. The idea was to grow quietly, building a solid foundation before revealing my presence. The first few months were a race against time and expectations. I kept tabs on Eclat through industry news and a few old contacts. Just as I'd predicted, without my leadership and innovation, the company was starting to flatline, losing the momentum I'd set. But my focus was all on Aura Beauty. I poured every ounce of my energy and brains into my new creation. One day, while Maya and I were finalizing paperwork for a new production batch, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, but something just told me to pick up. The voice on the other end belonged to Arthur Finch, one of Eclat de Butte's most important raw material suppliers, known for his ethics and only working with top-tier companies. "Ms. O'Connell," he started, his voice serious, "I heard what happened at Eclat. And frankly, the new management has been difficult. I also heard you're back in the game. I have a proposal that might interest you. An exclusive partnership." My heart skipped a beat. Arthur Finch, the man Richard and Victoria feared displeasing the most, was on my side. 8 months flew by since Arthur Finch's call. Thomas's fund, combined with the exclusive partnership with Finch, which guaranteed us access to top-notch raw materials at fair prices, was the oxygen Aura Beauty needed. We started small with a line of facial serums and night creams, all with that plant stem cell technology Richard and Victoria had deemed too risky. Instead of pricey brick-and-mortar stores, we went all in on digital marketing, social media campaigns, collabs with beauty influencers who genuinely tried and loved the products, and a flawless e-commerce site. The response was almost immediate. My Aura Beauty wasn't just a brand, it was a movement. Customers weren't just buying products. They were buying into a philosophy of conscious, effective beauty. Our products were different, authentic, and the story behind them, though I never told it publicly, resonated in the quality and passion we poured into every bottle. I kept a low profile, focusing on excellence and innovation, without any mention of my past at Eclat de Butte. To the outside world, I was Scarlett O'Connell, the visionary behind a new sensation in the beauty market, not the woman who was betrayed and pushed out. While Aura Beauty was thriving at a pace that blew all my projections out of the water, I watched Eclat's decline from afar. It wasn't a joyful observation but a painful realization. Richard, with his old-fashioned management, and Victoria, more concerned with image than strategy, were sinking the ship I had built. Industry news was grim for them. Plummeting sales, clinics shutting down, disgruntled suppliers. They had tried to replicate my ideas without my vision, without my passion, and the result was a pale shadow of what Eclat once was. They were losing market share every quarter, and the mismanagement was becoming a quiet scandal behind the scenes of the industry. I saw articles in business magazines questioning the future of traditional giants, like Eclat, while others praised the emergence of innovative new powers, like Aura Beauty. The irony was palpable, almost a gift. I didn't need to shout my revenge. It was being whispered by the resounding success of my new venture. My team, small but mighty, was right there with me, working their tails off. Maya was my right-hand woman, a born strategist who absolutely thrived with the creative freedom I gave her. One day, as I was going over Aura Beauty's growth charts, my phone rang. It was Eclat de Butte. A jolt of shock and anticipation shot through me. I hesitated for a second, my heart pounding. It was Richard. His voice, which used to be so commanding, now sounded tight, almost desperate. He was rambling about Eclat's tough spot, and how they were looking for outside advice for strategic restructuring. "Scarlett," he said after a long pause, his voice softer than I'd heard it in years, "we'd like you to come back. As a consultant. Your experience would be invaluable in helping us get through this." He had no idea he was asking for help from the very woman he'd kicked out, the same woman who was building an empire that was now eclipsing his. The silence on the line was filled only with the sound of my own quiet triumph. Richard's voice on the phone was a sound I never thought I'd hear. Pleading. Him, the unshakable patriarch, asking me for help. The urge to rub my success in his face was strong, almost primal. But I took a deep breath. My goal wasn't some petty win. It was an undeniable rise to the top. "Richard," I said, my voice calm and controlled, "I appreciate the offer, but I can't. I'm tied up with other projects and my focus is completely on them right now." I didn't spill the beans, didn't even drop my company's name. The silence on the other end was louder than any words. He hung up without another peep. I kept building Aura Beauty. Every single day was a big yes to my choice, to my strength. Our team grew, our products became the gold standard for innovation and sustainability, and word of mouth online launched us to a level Eclat would never hit with their old-school tactics. For me, revenge wasn't about being angry. It was about building something amazing and coming out on top. It was about showing what I could do when I wasn't stuck in their shadow and their lies. The big moment came at the annual beauty industry event, the top get-together in the biz. Aura Beauty was there for the first time, with a minimalist, classy booth that was drawing in a crowd blown away by our innovations. The energy was electric. The press was lining up, investors were queuing up. I felt a genuine, calm pride, no need for anyone else's approval. That's when I saw them. Victoria and Richard. They were at the Eclat debut booth just a few feet from ours. Their booth, which used to be the main attraction, now looked faded and almost empty. Victoria was trying to smile for a few visitors, but her eyes gave away her exhaustion and frustration. Richard, who used to be so imposing, looked shrunken, his face etched with worry. Our eyes met. The recognition in their eyes was instant, followed by a wave of disbelief. Victoria blinked, then opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Richard, on the other hand, turned pale. They saw me there, front and center, surrounded by the glow of Aura Beauty, a company that reeked of the future and the success Eclat had lost. My posture was straight, confident, without a hint of the submission they expected. My smile, which I didn't try to hide, wasn't mocking but a deep, quiet satisfaction. Aura Beauty was living proof of my worth, my talent, my power. It was my silent answer. They didn't need me to say a word. The contrast between my shine and their downfall was the very definition of revenge. They kicked me out and stole my creation, but I didn't just rebuild it. I took it to a level they never even dreamed of. That moment, with them watching me helpless, was worth more than any lawsuit. The day after the event, I got a call from Eloise. "Scarlett, you have to see this," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and pure excitement. My picture was plastered on the cover of the country's most important business magazine. The headline was bold: "The Beauty Phoenix, How Scarlett O'Connell Rose from Eclat's Ashes and Built a New Empire." The article didn't just sing praises for Aura Beauty's meteoric success. It also laid out the full story of my exit from Eclat, mentioning the lawsuit, the family betrayal, and how the Harrington family tried to erase me. The truth was out there for the world to see. That business magazine cover was the final straw. The story of my betrayal and Aura Beauty's rebirth swept through the market, exposing the truth behind the Harringtons' polished facade. The public scrutiny was relentless. Investigative reports followed, detailing Richard's shady financial dealings, the embezzlement, the lies. Eclat debut, already teetering from bad management and the loss of my vision, couldn't take the hit. The family's reputation crumbled in a matter of weeks, and the official investigations that followed sealed the company's fate. Eclat, my first empire, Thomas's legacy, went down in flames. I didn't feel any glee watching the news of Eclat's end, nor bitterness for what they'd done. That chapter of my life was closed. My energy was all in on Aura Beauty, which was now soaring higher than I ever imagined. In less than 2 years, we'd turned a startup into a global name, with products that not only beat the competition in quality and innovation but also in purpose. My team, led by Maya, was a prime example of loyalty and passion. We had built something truly ours, free from poison and manipulation. I thought about my journey, about the 36-year-old Scarlett who had risen from the ashes. The pain of betrayal forced me to reinvent myself, to discover an inner strength I didn't even know I had. The lesson was crystal clear. True power wasn't about controlling what others did. It was about building my own path. I was no longer the woman defined by a last name or a shared company. I was Scarlett O'Connell, the founder of Aura Beauty, a woman who had turned her pain into her greatest drive. My victory, I realized, wasn't about bringing down the Harringtons. It was about getting past the pain they caused me. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of creating, innovating, and leading with integrity. The satisfaction I felt was deep, a peace that came from within, not from outside. With Aura Beauty's success, I decided to broaden my impact. I invested in social causes, especially projects that empowered other women in business and science. I set up a scholarship fund for young female entrepreneurs, and Aura Beauty launched a product line where a portion of the profits went to NGOs supporting girls' education. Man, I really wanted my story to inspire people, to show that even after the deepest betrayal, resilience and passion can build something way bigger than any loss. The phoenix had definitely risen, and I was living proof of its comeback. The real win wasn't seeing them fall, but breaking free and finding my own fulfillment. I was free, calling the shots in my own life and building an empire that reflected my values, not the shadows of the past. This was my legacy, built with sweat, smart moves, and the unquenchable fire of a woman who just refused to be broken. The ultimate revenge isn't tearing someone else down. It's building something so magnificent that your success becomes the loudest statement of all. It's all about bouncing back, finding yourself, and turning pain into power.